Good evening, everybody. Demon Phil here with another hell of a show. If you will let me know in the comments you can see and hear me, I'd certainly appreciate that. And let's get those shares going and get more people involved in this because we have a great show in store for you tonight. Hope everyone had a great day, was productive, stayed safe, wash your damn hands. You know how it goes, the normal. But appreciate everybody being here. And Mike says, I see you. Can you hear me is the main thing, too, because I had to switch over to the headphones. So I'm just making absolutely sure you can hear me as well. And then as soon as I get confirmation on that, we will get going on this. Mike, I appreciate that. Like, shared, and hello there. Yeah, thank you very much. And here we go. All right, we got some people letting me know now here. Yep. All right, we're in good shape now. Perfect. All right, we've already got a good crowd in here tonight. Wow. Appreciate everybody being here. Perry, yes, Jay Fotos will be here very shortly. You know, I got to thank the sponsors first. I got some sponsors, so I have to take care of that as well. We have got Steve Roy in here, was the first one in here. Thank you for being here, Steve. And yes, deserves to be on the big screen. Absolutely, I agree, and he will be here shortly. And we have got, let me see, Shawnee is here as well. Thank you for being here, Miss Shawnee. All right, so we're going to make this official. This is a hell of a show, and we got a hell of a guest for you here tonight too, but I do have a few sponsors I want to thank first and foremost. First of all, I want to say everyone that's here right now, thank you very much for being here, and if you will, share this out, let everybody know what's going on, and get them all in here. Aside from that, we have a few sponsors that actually sponsor the show, and I am so happy they do. We have Totally Rad Comics, which is Jimmy Noble. Currently does not have any projects on there. He just finished up with a Kickstarter on there. He will be working on fulfillment on that within the next month or so. Knowing Jim, he's got something in the wind for Christmas time stuff over there. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. Codex Entertainment, which is Luis Torres. Right now, he doesn't have anything in the books going right now, but I know Luis has got Nebula Pearl coming out in January of next year. So be looking for that one. We have got 183 Degree Studio, which is Kara Nicole Alfred Trujillo. They just finished up with the Kara cosplay calendar, and we're looking for Fire Bitch 2 to be coming out, which should be coming out by the end of this month is what we're hoping for. I'm really crossing fingers on that one. We have got Naughty Fairies, Wendy Steen Shaner. Right now, Wendy is teamed up with Steph Wilson and Carrie Ann, and they have the steampunk playing cards on Kickstarter right now. Do not miss out on this one. It was supposed to be a small Kickstarter. They are pushing 10,006 and still moving forward, and they have about a day and a half left. You do not want to miss out. There are so many good stretch goals and everything in there. Wendy really wants to make it a big Christmas event for everybody. They're going to have a lot of goodies that are going to come into this. So there are already a lot involved. And then, of course, we have Third Empire Publishing, which right now they don't have anything going on, but I believe that the origin story of Mojo Rising is supposed to be coming out in January. So we'll be looking for that one. And finally, we have Nine Realms Publishing, which has Elysian Fields Pyramid Gambit, which is currently on Indiegogo. It will be on Kickstarter this week. So, I'm sorry, this coming week. So don't miss out on that. I believe it's the 22nd it comes out. You want to be able to go ahead and grab yourself a copy of that. If you want the Support Our Troops package, you have to get that on Indiegogo before it ends on the 22nd. If you don't, it will not be available on the Kickstarter. Just want to stress that. All right, so that is all my sponsors that are on here. So it's been enough time seeing me on here by myself. Let's go ahead and bring our guest up here. Here is Jay Fotos.
Ah!
What's going on, Jay?
Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I appreciate you being on here tonight.
I said this before. The lighting is horrible. I need to get one of those Nito lights.
Yeah, a little ring light thing.
Yeah, because I look awful. But you got good lighting. I got horrible lighting. But so
I got one of those. I got one of those digital lights that's above me that I can control with my phone now, so I can actually change it up a little bit.
Yeah, I need to get on the ball with my what do you call this? I'm not really. Yeah. I'm not really. I mean, even though I do this with school, I teach school online too, but I need to really step up my my video conferencing game or whatever. So,
well, I mean, that is one thing, and we'll kind of talk about that here just a little bit too. But with the the conferencing game that you're talking about and all, it's not something that's going to be just a one-off and done and things are going to go back to quote unquote normal. It's going to be something that's actually going to play an integral role in creative team members and what you're doing. Now, before we get into all that, of course, and get into the interview, for those that are out there who don't know who you are, if you go ahead and let us know who you are, what you do, and where to find you.
All right. My name is Jay Fotos. I've been a professional, I guess, comic book creator, artist, colorist, inker, across the whole gamut for over 20 years now. So I started with Todd McFarlane, in his office with him. I worked on Spawn, Sam and Twitch, Curse of Spawn, Spawn the Undead, Cygor, and then kind of periodically worked with him over just recently I worked on Spawn 301, and I kind of periodically work with him over the span of 20 years, but then branched off, worked with other companies and other projects, and bulk of my work goes with IDW. I've been with them for well over 15 years, I think. And the big ticket on that is Lock and Key, which is the big TV show now on Netflix. And we're still running strong with the comic books and everything like that. And then I'm venturing off trying to Kickstarter thing and doing a bunch of stuff. I'm all over the place. So I got to kind of, as a freelance artist, you really got to, and this is something I kind of instill on all my students, is you really got to have your feelers out there, and you really got to kind of like work in different areas rather than kind of pigeonholing yourself as like a colorist or an inker or, this or that. You got to kind of be able to do everything. And in my case, I'm lucky that I can work in different arenas with, case in point, like movie design stuff. If anybody's seen Haunting a Hill House on Netflix, Mark Kidwell and I did the special, all the ghosts. Well, we designed all the ghosts for Robert Kurtzman special effects studio. And we've been doing work with him on a lot of stuff, designing creatures and monsters and all that kind of stuff. So, and it all stems from working with comic books and everything. So it's all over the place. I'm lucky, very lucky.
That is very cool. The first thing that I want to ask, kind of leading into this, is because I always like to get to know the creator, the person behind the work and everything before we get directly into the work. So the question I want to ask you is, what are some of the influential horror things that have, stuck with you, that have actually brought out what you do all the time? Because you do a lot of horror style covers and interiors and things like that. So I mean, what actually brings that out with you?
Oh, it started in the 70s. My father used to get, remember, well, heavy metal's still around, but back in the 70s, my father used to, stop at this local smoke shop, pick up a cigar and pick up a heavy metal. And he didn't really like me. This is, early 70s or mid 70s. And he obviously didn't want me reading it because of all the nudity and whatnot. And I was always have to sneak and read them and look at the art and whatever. And then that's what kind of started it for me, because heavy metal compared to, like, I want to say comic books, regular comic books back then, were night and day. They're essentially comic books, right? But in a magazine form, but they were all done like heavily rendered and painted and fantastic art and whatever. But then if you go and look at, I want to say like a Spider-Man or whatever back in the 70s, there's just very stagnant, not very pretty, flat colors. I wasn't impressed with that back then. I never really got into it, And then I think I was introduced to Frank Frazetta at that same time, because I think my dad picked up a couple of his art books. And then Bernie Wrightson. And then that started it for me in the sense of getting into like monsters and drawing monsters and, all that kind of stuff. And then I think I didn't get into comic books till like later, ironically, when I moved out to Arizona, and I was working at an art store, and some buddies that would come into the art store and pick up supplies or whatever. And then they're like, "Oh, you should come with us we go to a comic book shop every comic book Wednesdays, go to lunch, go to the comic book store." and I picked up a Spawn. I don't know what issue it was. I think it was in the 30s by then. Back then, and it was like Spawn getting ripped into pieces, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is different from what I remember. And then I got into it, and I'm like, all right, cool, Spawn's awesome, whatever. And then crazy enough, I ended up working for the guy in a few years, so that was kind of neat. And then I was thrown into I call the comic book shark pit, which was, you got me as the greenhorn. Granted, it's not like I didn't, this whole time obviously I've been an airbrush artist and doing art and whatever, but I never really found my niche in a way. I always liked monsters and all that kind of stuff, but I never really found my niche. And then got to meet some of the guys that were working on Spawn stuff, and I remember Chance Wolf. He was an inker on Spawn, and he moved down here from Washington, I think, and him and I became really good friends. And at that time, I think I was working at a sign shop, and I said, "Hey, do you mind if I just I bring an art table over, and then after work I'll just come over and we'll shoot the shit and draw and whatever." And then he's like, "Yeah, man, cool." So I was able to bring an art table over and draw with him, and then if he needed help on stuff, I would help him, inking pages, but like doing the borders. He kept it. He's like, "Here, Jay, just do the borders, do this, do that." And every once in a while, we're like, "Here, try this or try that," and I'll do that. But nothing too serious. And then at that time, hearing all the stories and all that kind of stuff, and then eventually, I was able to get into the computer side of things, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Then that like computers are going to be making a big impact on how comic books are being produced and that kind of stuff. So I got into that side of it, and then from there I got into the coloring part of it, and that's when I actually started working for Todd, and then doing it. But I veered off. What happened was that I got hired to work for Todd, and I was basically thrown into this lion pit, if you want to call it, of the working with the best comic book artists in the industry, and then it's either sink or swim, kind of thing. So there was a period of probably 3 years that I was sleeping on the floor in our studio at McFarlane's office, because I was there 12, 13, 15 hours a day, doing everything and anything I can get my hands on and learning everything. And then with deadlines and all that kind of stuff, we would have to stay late hours and just crunching and trying to get stuff done. And within that 3 years of working in his office was like my boot camp. And then from there, I just went and kind of worked at different companies and people, and that's another good thing. I mean, I was able to work with different artists, and I'm able to change my style or work differently rather than like doing one thing all the time, kind of thing. So I got a lot more diverse in that way of because when you're working with different artists, you got to like take different approaches with stuff. So and you got to kind of adapt to it, or somebody. It's like, all right, here, start working with this guy or start working on this guy, and you're, you got to adapt to the art, and you got to change it, and you got to go that way. So I learned with constantly working with different artists and creators, and so I just got more diverse that way, which was another good thing, because I can transition easily into different projects and stuff like that too. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're like you said, thrown in with some of the best there. So I mean, that's the best way to learn and just be bounced around between them. That's a lot of diversity on there and fast pace at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was thinking back on, I mean, like I said, I spent many nights on the floor in that studio, late nights there, which was, that's when you're learning and I soaked it all in, man. I took it all in. I mean, when you're working with, McFarlane and Capullo, and I think Dwayne Turner at that time, Angel Medina was working with, we were working with, man, I'm drawing a blank. all different guys that we were working with. But yeah, so we're, I was in the mix with all those guys and learning as much as I could and taking it all in. So really good experience, better than any school. I could tell you that
absolutely.
much. I mean, I went to art school and I'm like, yeah, this is my, like I said, it's a boot camp. This is like Navy SEALs for comic books. So
that is the truth, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And this one is for me. Sorry, Jay, this one's mine. This is my girlfriend here. She's making little kisses over your way. I didn't want you to get upset about that. She said she's a little bit late to the show, and Perry said better late than never, which is absolutely true.
All right.
Definitely share this out, get more people in here. We're just getting started on this. So we've kind of gone into a little bit of your origin story on how you got into it in dealing with McFarlane. How do you actually approach Todd directly to go ahead and start working with him, or did he approach you? I mean, how did that work with that?
Well, I think it was more of there was a slot to be filled,
Mm-hmm.
and I was there in a way. So I think Mark Nicholas was working with Todd Broker, and they were working on I think Curse of the Spawn and some other titles, and then Mark decided that he wanted to go freelance, and then I think he ended up working on a Crow book.
Mm-hmm.
Or something. So Mark ended up doing that, and I think Dark Ages Spawn. Everything stuff got shifted around there, and then I was there like, hey, I'm available, and at that time I was learning the computer stuff, and then kind of jumped in there, and then when I was in there, then because Todd at that time, that's when Todd was like. This is when McFarlane Toys was gigantic, and
Mm-hmm.
That's when the toys are. This is like late '90s going into the 2000, early 2000s. That the McFarlane Toys was just huge. So, and then the Spawn movie came out. HBO animated series was out. So he had his hands full. So he would come in and which is a joke, and I keep. It's kind of funny is that because he's busy doing all this other stuff, and then we were there, and then when he had opportunities, he would jump in and he would see what we were working on, and then it was kind of funny because like if somebody goes out to lunch or something, somebody leaves and comes back or whatever, and there's fingerprints all over your screen, you're like, oh, was Todd here? And they're like, yeah, because he would come in and we would show him what we're working on. And he would like try to draw all over your screen or go like, yeah, do this. And I like this and this. And it'll be smudges all over your screen from Todd, manhandling your computer screen, which is pretty funny. So, because we were just because every time he would come, we would just be like, do you have to rub your hand all over my screen? You can point, but he would he would pretend to draw on my screen, and it would just leave marks all over it, which is funny. So
what was it that you worked on that was like your signature that you knew this is it? You've hit your niche. This is what you were meant to do, to work in this industry.
Well, I think when we were doing Spawn the Undead, because that was like the next title Todd was going to relaunch or not relaunch, but the next big title next to Spawn, and it was such a big deal, and it released well. It was a #1 book. I mean, it beat out any Marvel book, any DC book of that month, issue #1. And I remember it was a big deal, and like we were so nervous because we wanted to get it right. And I know we wanted this different, darker. Todd wanted this kind of the darker version of Spawn, So I mean, we were familiar with with Capullo and Haberlin and everybody that was working on the flagship title. And Todd's like, no, I want it to look more, noir. I want it to be more darker, more creepier, whatever. So that's where I kind of honed, I guess, my look of comic books, I guess, because that's where we kind of we specialized in giving it more of a darker, not so comic booky. You know what I mean? So
yes.
we excuse me, we focus more on more of a dark, creepier look rather than I want to say the more hero kind of style, and then it kind of translated to everything past that. Sam and Twitch is a big thing because I ended up Sam and Twitch was a big series too. It was like 50 something issues, and when I took that on, it was like we wanted to give it its own look, too. So, and then that's the diversity right there. I mean, because you're jumping to one project and this project, and then every project that would come up, Sam and Twitch or Cygor or of course the Spawn the Undead. We have these meetings of, yeah, we want to give it a completely different look. We wanted to give it a different feel and this, that, and the other thing. So we made it obvious that all these were different, rather than going like, oh, this is just another clone of the flagship Spawn. It is kind of, it's a branch off, but it's its own look and its own vibe and everything like that. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. Sam and Twitch worked really well. I know we did really well on Sam and Twitch. And then there was a lot of talks of doing TV shows and movies and this, that, and the other thing, but it just never came to fruition. And then, so that was like the bigger title for me at that time was Sam and Twitch. This is back in early 2000s, 2001, 2, 3, 4, maybe around there.
So since we're talking about Spawn, I want to go ahead and bring this up because we've got Spawn 301.
Yeah.
And if you have not watched the documentary about Todd McFarlane, it is not about Todd. It's about the journey to 301. So I just want to go ahead and throw that out there. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because you were a part of 301. So what were your feelings whenever that record was broken? And of course, we've already seen that Todd was like, it's just another day. We're going to the next one. We're going to the next one. He wants to keep breaking that record on a regular basis. I was just wondering what your emotions were whenever you hit that 301 and actually broke that record.
It was good. And Todd, I just saw recently he did a cover that listed like everybody that's worked on Spawn at some point. And then I think they modeled it off of a Spider-Man cover or something. It was just like a silhouette of a city, and it's got everybody's name on it or whatever. And then somebody posted, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. You're trying to find your name. You find your name in there, and you're just looking through the gamut of all these people over the, how many years this thing been going on? 25, 30 years.
Exactly.
And then I can look through that list and I'm like, these are all these people that I've worked with over the years, and still, some of these guys I still work with over the years, and it's, it has that nostalgia, gives you a little hit in the feels that you're like, it was awesome to be part of it. And it was awesome, the friends that you make, working on these projects. So it was an incredible experience. It still is, and then a lot of these guys we still stay in contact, like Clayton Crane. I think he did that cover that you're showing right now. He stayed at my house. He was in town for a sign-in, and he was at my house for a couple of days, so I'm still, buddies with these guys. So
very cool. And there's a lot of, it's all about the teamwork and trying to get it done and everything, because Todd never could have done it by himself, and he's the first one to admit that.
Oh yeah.
And it is a teamwork thing. That's why I was asking, because whenever he went on about the documentary, anything was talking about it, he kept mentioning about the team. That's why it's nice to have a member of that team on here to go ahead and discuss how you feel, because it is a team venture to go ahead and get to that point.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we've talked about, Spawn. We brought up earlier about diversity in what you do, and I'm going to go ahead and throw some cover work and some stuff up here on the screen that we can kind of talk about as we go along. The first one I'm going to bring up is the Diablo house. Oh, we lost him. That wasn't me, I swear. He'll dial right back in. We've got Diablo house was one of them that he had worked on, that he and I were talking about in the green room, that we're going to be discussing more in the future as well. But let me see. Here he is.
There you go. I lost you. I don't know what happened.
Okay. I don't know either.
Okay.
But we've got Diablo house. We're going to kind of talk about that just a little bit, and then kind of go through a few of them that I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah. Diablo house is really, really cool, and everybody should kind of check it out. It's one of those sleeper things that maybe not everybody's heard about, but the artwork is incredible. I got teamed up with Santi Perez, who's out of Italy. And it's kind of this Tales from the Crypts kind of thing. And this guy that you see in the cover right here, he's like kind of this surfer looking dude. And he's kind of your crypt keeper, if you want to call it. And he introduces all these different stories. And it's really, really cool. I mean, we could talk here for an hour about the series, but I would say, definitely go out and check it out, because some of the artwork is just phenomenal. I mean, I remember when Ted Adams, he's him and Robbie Robbins started IDW, and then this is his pet project. And I remember when Ted asked me to do it, or we were in San Diego, and he ran up and he's like, Jay, I got this project. I want you, and he was pulling up some artwork on his phone. He's like, I want you to work on this thing. And he's pulling this thing up on the phone. And he showed me a picture of the cover to #1. It's like this wave, and you could see under the water or whatever. And then I'm looking at him like, yep, I'm doing it, because the artwork is just incredible. So, and then, so Santi was cool enough. He's done a couple things with me too. Even on the Rising Rebels stuff, he did a cool little pinup for me too. So he's awesome.
Now, I was waiting for this question because I knew it was going to come up, because I know this guy. Dan Stockwell wants to know, can we purchase books from Jay? Dan, that is yes.
Yeah.
And we'll be going over that at the end. So stick around, because we're definitely going to be going over that. I promise, because I have you in mind on that one. I was going to send you a message if you weren't here anyway and let you know everything. And Mike James Bingston wants to know, are there witches in Diablo House?
Witches? I don't think so. No.
He's a big collector of witches. So if you have stuff that has witches in it, that's your guy right there.
Yeah. No witches.
So we've got Diablo House. Let me go ahead and bring up the next one here that I wanted to talk about is Road of the Dead.
Yeah, this was a fun. Jonathan Mayberry wrote it, and it was originally a screenplay from George Romero. It was his last. We had, what is it? And I'm going to get crucified right now because I don't know all. All right, you got you got Night of Living Dead, right? You got Dawn of the Dead. You got Day of the Dead, and there's another one, Land of the Dead, that I worked on that comic book too. And then this was supposed to be his final, Road of the Dead, and he died obviously before it got produced. So this was a prequel to that script that Jonathan Mayberry adapted. And originally it was supposed to say George Romero's Road of the Dead, but I think there was some licensing problems, or how that stuff goes. So, but yeah, it's basically from George Romero's Road of the Dead, which was supposed to be his last movie of the series of the Dead movies. So.
Steve Roy says that is my favorite read of all time. The artwork is amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Then I'm going to have to get this one because it caught my eye in the first place. I'm definitely have to get it now.
Yeah, I worked on that with Drew Moss, and Drew's awesome.
And David Fott, who is a big horror guy in the industry and everything, loved Road of the Dead. Great artist too. If you get a chance to talk to him, Jay, you need to talk to him. David Fott, he's got some amazing work as well.
Yeah, that was the first project. Let me see if I have a copy. Hold on a second. Or Road of the Dead or Land of the Dead? Because Land of the Dead, this is the first book that Gabe and I worked on together.
Nice.
Before anything. So this is is basically from the movie. And then this is the first project Gabe and I worked on together. And then from there we went to I think it was Beowulf, and then we went to Clive Barker's Great and Secret Show, and then from there went to Lock and Key.
All
nice. Major projects. I mean the Great and Secret Show, which is I'll pull another volume, or I mean it's a big fat. I mean, this ain't no skinny book. There's a ton of. I mean, there's 12. It's a 12-issue series. I'm doing this totally wrong here, but there's a ton of work in this book too. So, we've laid down a quite a bit of work before we got into working on Lock and Key, and Lock and Key's giant. I mean, 6 volumes. and we're still going, so.
Yeah, it's Lock and Key is definitely one of those that it had attention before the series, of course, and the series has just kind of intensified that, for other people who didn't know it was going on or whatever. But you've got so much information and so much world building that's already been done in the series that they could have a series, a TV series on this for quite some time if they did it the right way.
Oh yeah.
So they have options to do that.
And they're filming or they're shooting season 2 right now. So, all next year, it's all going to be another big Lock and Key year, with, if we're going to start talking about Lock and Key, we just got done working, or I just finished issue 3 of Pale Battalions Go. And again, crappy lighting. So this is issue number 2, but issue number 3 we just finished, and then we're jumping into that. We're doing a crossover between Neil Gaiman's Sandman and Lock and Key, and we're going to be doing. It's going to be 2 issues. It's going to be an 80-page story. So the first issue is going to be released through IDW, and the second issue, first issue IDW, is going to be, I think, 36 or 38-page story. And then the second part is going to go through DC. It's not going to change, right? It's just basically we're just switching publishers, right? So because when that all first was going on, they're like, oh, well, DC's going to do issue 2 and we're doing issue 1 being IDW. I'm like, how does that work? And he's like, well, we just basically produce it, hand it to them so they can print it. So I'm like, okay, got it. So it's, nothing changes story or anything like that. It's the same team, same art, same everything. It's just DC. That's how they're doing the licensing. They're just basically splitting it in half, kind of thing. So, but it's going to be huge. I mean, I didn't know. I thought it was just going to be like maybe an oversized issue. Maybe because with In Pale Battalions Go, they're 24-page story or pages. I thought maybe we'll do 24, 28 pages just to fit it in a floppy. And then they're like, no, it's gonna be 80. So so that's like 4 books, pretty much 4 floppies, crammed into 2 books. So it's gonna be a lot of work. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna be starting out as Gabe. I think Gabe's starting on it because we got to get issue 1 done for February release, and then we have an issue 0, which is coming out, I think, December 1st. And what that is, it's kind of a prequel, the setup to it, and it reprints Over the Moon, Lock and Key one-shot that we did, and also the first issue of Sandman. Puts them into one book, and it kind of sets it up for readers. So when they get into the news story, that kind of says this is why and how, and this is how these 2 meet up. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Now, let me go ahead and bring this up real quick. Russell Allen is here, and yes, he put that on there. And because Jay Fotos probably doesn't know what that means on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, for a plug for Russell, his book came out tonight on crowdfunding. He launched it. It has been a 10-year thing that he's been working on, and he finally put it on crowdfunding tonight.
Cool. Did he do a Kickstarter or?
Kickstarter, yes. It's Xeno Titan. It's something else, but I never can say it the right way, so I just have to, spread it all out there like that. So that's what he's kind of making fun of me on there.
Okay.
So, is Xeno Nanite
Titan? If we want to start talking about crowdfunding now, so that's a good segue, right?
That's a whole other segue right there. Exactly.
Okay.
So, yeah, Russell put that out there, which we're all very happy that he did so, and looking forward to that. So, that's one thing that I want to bring up is because when I technically first started following you was with Rising Rebels on the Kickstarter for that, and the crowdfunding.
Check out my.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So with Rising Rebels, I mean, it was an amazing crowdfunding. The way the marketing was done on it and everything was great, and the way that it was set up, there was so many options and things that were available on there, which was great, and it really had me hooked. And I got the deluxe VHS, I think is what we figured out on it, which is amazing. I wish I had it to show you, but since I've just moved to Tennessee, I don't have it here to show, but we're going to show something similar to it here very shortly. So whenever you're doing crowdfunding, how many crowdfunding things have you done actually?
This is my first. So to give the background on it, Rising Rebels here. This was the Kickstarter deluxe edition, collected edition, and how it started was I put out the floppy books, and I did it myself. I'm like, okay, I'll put the books out myself and sell them via comic conventions online or whatever like that. And then after I got the 4 issues done, I'm like, all right, well, let's do a Kickstarter for the collected edition. This was my first go at it myself, and this is a huge learning experience. So I kind of went into it going like, okay, well, the project's done. I'm putting it all together. I actually added, like, there's Colonel Knox. I added a 10-page bonus story to it, to kind of, that anybody that did pick up the floppies, that they're like, oh, well, I want the collected edition because it has a bonus story, plus it has everything together, So yeah, it was a definite learning experience. I kind of went into it thinking, if it raised some money, cool. That I was planning on taking money out of my pocket anyway to help fund or pay for any of the printing or whatnot. And then I kept the goal pretty low, just so you could meet it. And then I think we doubled it, which is great, And then and again, yeah, anybody that does these Kickstarter things, you kind of learn as you do it. And it's kind of my philosophy in life, is that if you want to learn, you just go by doing it. I had a few buddies that have been really successful with it, that I was able to call them up and say, hey, what about this? What do you think of that? Blah, blah, blah. Polito being one of them. And, just getting his advice with some stuff. I mean, he does it a little bit differently than I would do it, but he was good with some of the fundamentals of running a campaign and all that kind of stuff. So, and then again, it was like another learning experience, that when I go into doing my next one, I'm going to, tighten the bolts and fine tune everything a little bit more, that, that it is profitable more, that, we can walk away and then actually make some money, that it could help, prolong our projects. You know what I mean? So a lot of guys, I think, that get into it, I mean, they're kind of happy that they're, getting funded or whatever, but there's guys like, and I'm not downplaying what they do, but this is how I pay my bills, and I've been doing this for 20 years. So I got to be able to go, okay, well, when I go to do this, I got to make sure that I'm not like, it's either, you keep your lights on or, or not, you know what I mean? So a lot of guys that do it still have day jobs or whatever, but I got to be a little bit smarter, not smarter, but I mean, I got to be more cautious and make sure, okay, I don't want to get too crazy with it. I don't want to overspend. I don't want to this. I don't want to that, just so I make sure that it's successful, that we can do another one and go, okay, cool. I can, keep going with this, which it did, which I was very happy with it. So now that we do, we keep doing more of them, we'll fine tune it even more and more and more, and learn as we're going, that it could be a great avenue to just keep producing books this way, or anything, basically. So,
and not knowing that it was even your first Kickstarter, whenever I backed it, the reason I backed it was not necessarily just the art or the story or anything like that. It was the passion that you were showing for your work. Because I've said it on many shows, that it's the passion that indie artists and indie creators put into their stuff that gets my attention, and that of a lot of the other audience members that are out there, and a lot of people that are backers and purchasers.
yeah.
But you were doing constant videos on, we hit this, we made this stretch goal, we've got this available, we've got this, let's get up to this point, and you had so much fire and intensity in there. I was like, oh, I'm all over this. I've got to back this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, you got to it's a month long leading into it. I mean, you got to build this website and all this stuff, and you got to make all this, like we're talking about my next project coming up is Gorgon, that I have to make all this stuff and prototypes and this, that, and the other thing. So when I do show it, or I do talk about it, that I have something in my hand going like, hey, this is what you're going to get, and there's a lot of buildup to when that launches, right? And then you had that whole month of promoting it and all that stuff. And then when it's over, it's like, okay, now you got to get to work, and then you got to get it to the printers and get it shipped out and get all your stretch goals and everything bundled up and together. And, it's a lot of work. And then with Rising Rebels, granted, I had help from my buddies and parts here and here, but the day-to-day aspect was on me, so I had to be on top of it, and it's a lot of work, but I think once you kind of get I think my second one, and again, I think I tell everybody that when I do these things, I go into them, and you got to look at it, me coming from a guy that's been working under deadlines for over 20 years, and it's got to go to the printer. It's got to go, with these Kickstarters, I'm kind of coming into it like, hey, I'm not going to stress out over this. I want to have fun with it. I want to have fun with you guys with it. I don't want to, rush. I don't want to go. I want to just have fun with it and take my time with it. And then, because like I've been talking about Gorgon forever, how long? And then people are like, oh, when's Gorgon coming? And I'm like, I'm working on it now. And then once it's all buttoned up, which is like, we'll talk about that in a minute. But then once it's all buttoned up and ready to go, we'll launch it. And then, I'm going to be honest with everybody and go, okay, cool. We're going to launch it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I plan on getting it to you by this date. And anybody that picked up the Rising Rebels, I really make sure to be to my word, that I think we got it out earlier than everybody was. I think we were shooting for in August, and we were shipping them out in July. So that was a good thing. And then I plan on, you always aspire to, to be better than what you anticipated, right? But I don't want to shoot myself in the foot again, in the foot, and say, yeah, I'm going to get it out early again this year, or for the next project.
Right.
But I just want people to know, and I think people are confident that when we say we're going to do something, it's going to get done. I think you can look at our past work and our record, knowing that, like, when people do back us and support us, that you're like, oh yeah, we're going to get it, and then Jay, take your time. That's what I'm kind of hoping everybody said, Jay, I know you're going to get it done. It's going to look great. We love what you're doing. Cool. Don't stress out. And that's what kind of everybody's been. I mean, I just had somebody recently, like, this has been, the campaign was over in, however many months ago. Right. And then I had a guy hit me up from Ireland, and he goes, hey, I never got my, my thing. And I'm like, what? Really? Like, let me check. This is recently. This is like within the past couple of weeks. And then this is like, I've sent all this stuff back out in July, and so I'm like, all right, let me check. Went through all the stuff, and I said, well, I have you listed that I sent it out, but I don't have your receipt info, or when you do your overseas or whatever, I was going to Ireland with it. I'm like, I can't find your info, so I guess I didn't. So let me put, get one together for you. And then I added a couple extra things. Hey, sorry this happened, whatever. And then he was super awesome. He was like, cool, man, don't worry about it. Cool. I'm excited about getting it. And as we're talking about it, like, he sent me an email today saying, hey, I got it, and it's fantastic. I'm reading it right now. And I'm like, oh, cool, you got it. That was quick. I was expecting, COVID and all that kind of stuff. It was going to take a month to get to him, but he got it within like a couple weeks, which is pretty good. Yeah. So, and he was, super gracious. And I think a lot of our fans, or a lot of people that we associate with, or anybody, or I think, everybody in our field is, though you have another side of it, but everybody that I had my experience with this Kickstarter have been fantastic. I haven't had anybody going like, well, I got my copy and it was this and this was bent, or, whatever. I haven't got any complaints whatsoever, which is, knock on wood, but, I was expecting it. I was expecting stuff being lost and damaged and this, that, and the other thing. And, the only thing was this guy from Ireland, which is, I'll take it. You know what I mean?
Well, the main reason is, I mean, I can tell you right now from a backer standpoint, not even from doing marketing or anything like that on my other end, but from a backer standpoint, whenever you finish the campaign, you put the thank you out there, which everyone pretty much does, which is the normal. It was the after that you did with that, because you kept doing the videos and you kept doing the emails and you kept doing the things on Facebook where you're like, this is what's going on with this, and this is what we've got in right now, and this is what we got in, and this is now taken care of. We're just waiting on X, Y, and Z, and we're done. It's coming to you. So
I think that's important.
That communication,
I think that's another thing I talked about with my students, because I teach a class called Comics Creation, which is like basically and publishing, and nowadays how publishing is and doing all these Kickstarter or crowdfunding stuff is that a big part of it is that you really have to keep your communication wide open with your fans, and let people know that, that, you're producing it and this is what's happening. And, and on like a weekly, I think I was doing it like every other day almost, just kind of giving updates to everybody. And I'm a huge advocate of that. And then I tell my students the same thing, that, kill them with kindness, don't give them any excuse to kind of like give you any kind of negativity whatsoever. But, you got to be on the ball and let them know what's going on, almost repeatedly, to the point that you're like, okay, enough, dude, I get it. You know what I mean? So, and I think it works, because I haven't had anybody complain about anything, which is, again, knock on wood, that, we just continue that cycle. So
now, speaking of continuing the cycle, we've got some pretty hungry people out here in the audience right now talking about Gorgon, throwing it out there. And the last comment that I've gotten so far right now is, put me down for the max right now for Gorgon. I'm going to tell you right now, Steve, me as well.
Well, here, I mean, I think I've teased this. This is like, because we did this box set thing for Rising Rebels, and we did like a box set that has like signatures on the inside, and we're gonna do the same thing for Gorgon, because everybody really like it. It's something cool to put on the shelf, And what's gonna be cool about Gorgon is, rather than just doing like a one shot, or whatever you want to call it, one story arc trade, with Gorgon, we're going to do it in volume. So when we first, do the Kickstarter and we have this box set, the whole, I guess the marketing of it is that, we're going to do multiple volumes, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, however long we take it. And as you get a volume, you just stick it in your Gorgon box. You know what I mean? So, and it's something kind of cool to put on a shelf, and then, all the added extras and goodies and all that kind of stuff all fits in the box. So everything is kind of all self-contained. So like, if anybody that got the Rising Rebels one, everything, when you got the delivery, everything fit in this box. You know what I mean? So it's just a nice little package that I think works really well. So we want to continue that with Gorgon as well. And Gorgon, like I said, we're going to go to, I'm going to follow Polito's lead on this, because I learned my lesson with doing the floppies, is that we're going to switch to 48-page, we call them novellas, 48-page graphic novels, and they're kind of, square bound, nicer books, and we're going to do volumes of it. So the first volume, we'll do, and then after that finishes, go into the second. We'll probably jump, as we're rolling out volume 1, get into volume 2, and then so forth, and keep going with it. So, and Gorgon's like our, Rising Rebels was my love letter to 80s horror. It was intended as a fun, this idea that went back, and if you read any of the editorial stuff in the back of the book, I kind of give a little backstory on it, where it came from. Like back in the 70s when I was a kid, I had that name Rising Rebels in my head, and then finally, here we are in 2020, and I actually put something to paper with it, and then it was, like I said, it's my fun, over the top 80s horror kind of stuff, and I'm going to leave it at that, and then eventually, if something ever happens movie wise, or whatever, cool, it's just a fun, or something I have in my stable. But with Gorgon, and this is something I'm working out with Mark, and Mark Kidwell and Jeff Zornow as well. And we're developing this as more like, this is our like big budget movie kind of idea. And we're putting a little more effort into it as like, okay, we want to market this. We want to push this as like, if anybody knows our series 68, we want to push this as like, this is a movie, or this is a series, this is a TV show, this is like one of those things. Yeah, this is 68. We'll talk about that in a minute too.
Mm-hmm.
But Gorgon is our like big budget. If anybody asks like, hey Jay, do you have an idea for a movie? We're gonna go, yep, Gorgon, because this is the premise is really, it's a really unique spin of the Greek mythology of what you know about Medusa, right? And ours is we're pulling you way away from that Clash of the Titans mythology, and we're kind of making it a modern day kind of horror. And how we say it, or how we presenting it, is that we're taking you out of that whole Greek mythology and we're dropping you actually into a different mythology, which is Mayan and South American. And then how does this sister of Medusa end up here? And then how does and then there's this whole like understory or surrounding story of this drug cartel, and the venom from this Gorgon is this new drug that's hitting the streets of, in the 80s. And, when the whole cocaine craze was going on, think Miami Vice or whatever. And then this new drug called Gorgon's hitting the streets. And it comes from this Gorgon that's in the jungles of Colombia. And you're like, how does this thing end up here? And then you get those backstory this, and then there's a third one and you don't know about yet, but we're going to be introducing her, down the line as well. So I want to tell you more, but I mean, it just because I just love it so much. I want to wait more till like I get more of this done, and then I go, here, look what we're doing, and this is this and this is that, and whatever. And then this whole, like, I want to say this, like I said, this kind of drug cartel wraparound story with this monster, in the middle of it, kind of thing. So like I said, it's our big budget, movie thing that we're really excited about launching it. So that's why we want to expand it, because we, at the beginning, we were like, well, do we just want to do a collect, just a regular thing? And I'm like, well, this can go a lot more than just this. We can take it into multiple volumes. We can go here, we can go there. And then again, introducing, because there are 3 Gorgons. There's Medusa, then the 2 sisters. We're only talking about one of them here, so where's the other one? So we get into that, and then, so that can branch off into a whole other thing. So we're going to keep it open and like kind of keep going with it. And eventually, like how 68 was, it started from this one-shot comic book that we did back in 2006 that nobody would shut up about it, till 2010. We decided to go, okay, cool, let's go. And then we did 6 volumes of it. And not to give away any much about that, but we just recently signed a contract to move it into what we've kind of always had the envision of, bringing it to the big screen or a series or something like that. So we'll have some news on it. I can't really say too much now, but we have things are signed, and we're moving forward with hopefully bringing 68 to another medium, which we're really excited about too. So
very cool. And 68, I mean, I enjoyed that book. That was
if anybody doesn't know 68, I mean, the premise is like everybody knows the original Night of the Living Dead, the black and white George Romero Night of the Living Dead. And it takes place in 1968. And ours kind of branches off on that, which is like, well, what else is going on in 1968, which was the Vietnam War. And our story kind of just drops you in the worst place you want to be, where there's a zombie apocalypse, but where there's a lot of dead people right in the middle of a really nasty war, So we bring you in the day it hits, and then all this stuff that happens, and then we bring in actual facts from the war and the era and all. If anybody reads any of these books, they'll know that between each chapter on every volume that you get, we give you a list of all the facts that we used in the story. That kind of gives you a little art history, a little history of the war and the things that were going on, and different things that you didn't know about, maybe, that we kind of brought into the story as well. So it's kind of a history lesson at the same time. So, which was, I think at that time we were like, oh, it's a no-brainer to like, why isn't this a movie? Why isn't this a TV show or whatever? And at that time, we had Walking Dead. So it's like, and a couple other zombie movies here and there. It's like, all right, how many zombie movies can we make, at one point? So I think with us, we kind of had to wait that wave a little bit. I mean, you're always going to have a zombie movie. You're always going to have some kind of, I mean, you go back to the original Night of the Living Dead. How many zombie movies and TV shows and blah, blah, blah have we had till to today? It just keeps going. So, but I think when Walking Dead hit, it was just a big rush of it. And it was just like, for us to jump in at that time would have been too much, and we would have been we would have just kind of been whitewashed a little bit. So I think with Walking Dead, I don't know if is it ending. I mean, I don't really follow it too much, but I know the comics ended, but the TV show, I'm not sure if that's ending anytime soon. It's been around 10 years now.
Yeah,
so
it's ending with a spinoff. It's got some kind of spinoff series it's going to have with it now.
Okay, so I mean, it's going to be a little spinoff series of it, but I think if we start to develop something now and it has time for things to simmer a little bit, and then we kind of bring in 68 as a new wave, I guess, of either a series or a movie or whatever, that I think a lot of people will be interested in it. And I think our take is a little more, way more graphic, and again, you're bringing in a really nasty war, and you're bringing in zombies with a really nasty war and things that go along with it. I think our spin is going to be way more intense, I guess is the word you want to use. I think any conversations that we've been having with producers and directors and whatnot, that is just that we're gonna bring that Full Metal Jacket meets Night of the Living Dead. That's our main key line, is like when we go to introduce this to people and we're talking about it, it's like it's Full Metal Jacket meets Night of the Living Dead. And then when people think about that, they go, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we bring in, then there's the other elements that we bring into it. They're like, okay, yeah, you can have that really dark side of war stories, right? And then there's the good stuff that can come out of it. There's the storylines. If anybody knows the story about, we got Yam, who's this Chinese American who's a tunnel rat, and he's dealing with his trials and tribulations of like, well, he looks like the enemy, and he's getting picked on with the racism and all the stuff that's going on, that he looks like the enemy. So he's hanging out with a bunch of good old boys, and they're constantly giving him shit, and then he spins it around. So I think a big thing when we were talking with the producers and director and stuff is that they really like the idea that this character Yam, and about how things are, in America right now with the racism and this, that, and I think this could be a good thing to tie in, and that kind of stuff, So, and then there's other elements that we're bringing in too. I mean, obviously Jungle Jim, who's like kind of our Rambo meets Captain America, and he's going to be he's a huge part of it. I mean, and that's going to be our, I guess our action figure, and that, if you're going to if there's going to be one if you're going to create whatever out of this whole world, and there's going to be only one action figure, it's going to be Jungle Jim, because he fits that scenario, and then the stories that go along with him teaming up with a tiger and fighting off this horde of zombies, if anybody knows the story, does, I think we were talking to producers, and they're like, can you, and some of them I don't think even read parts of these stories. And then I think that was one thing that was brought up. I'm like, can you imagine showing a clip this dude, geared up jungle gym running through, and he's getting chased by this horde of zombies, and he runs up this tree, and then lo and behold, there's a Bengal tiger sitting there at the in the tree with him that jumps on him. Then they go falling into the middle of this horde of zombies, and then in a comic book fashion, they kind of go, well, either we go after each other or we go after the horde of zombies. So they kind of go like back to back, and then they're fighting all the zombies off. And then, I don't want to spoil it for you, but then, you kind of, the chaos ensues, and then you have a tiger and you have Jungle Jim, and they're ripping apart all these zombies. And, can you imagine seeing that in cinematic or some kind, whatever? I mean, the visuals would be mind-boggling, so I think that cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a selling point right there when you're like, all right, Jungle Jim, that's got to be in it, because that's a huge thing. I mean, can you imagine seeing this like in live action or either animation or whatever? So we'll see, but it's Hollywood. You never know what Hollywood. So I always take kind of things with grain of salt. So we can only wish, and everybody seems positive. So we'll see what happens. So
now you've got a lot of people interested, including myself, on Gorgon. When is it coming out? When are we looking at?
Well, we're working on it today. I just finished up like I said, I just finished up Lock and Key, that last issue. Then I have like a window between after finishing up in Pale Battalions Go and working on Hell and Gone. So the crossover Lock and Key and Sandman. So I got this window, and I'm like, okay, cool. Jeff's already completed his side of what we need, and then I got to finish what I need to do, and then I got to put everything together with the website and all that stuff. So I'm working on all that right now, so I can get it all done and buttoned up. And I'm looking to probably launch everything, I think probably in January, February.
Perfect.
That being, when Hell and Gone comes out in, excuse me, we're shooting for February, is that I can kind of ride those coattails a little bit. And, as we're doing the whole PR and all that stuff for Lock and Key, I can go, oh, by the way, I got this Kickstarter going on, check it out, so kind of with the marketing of that, I want to kind of ride those coattails a little bit. And then, and then launch it then, and then go full steam with it and have fun with it, But again, I'm not stressing out over it. I don't want to stress over it. I want to have fun with it, just creating, goofy little. I mean, here's like one of the little, and the lighting's horrible, but here's is that upside down? Yeah. So horrible lighting. But here's like it's like a trading card looking thing with a pin.
Yeah.
So this will be like one of the giveaways, something different. And so I got a bunch of other stuff planned that I'm working on right now too. So it's like juggling all these, doing this kind of stuff and making this stuff and then actually producing the book and, getting the website done and working on the graphics. So it's a juggle of all these different things, right? So and then as you're, all right, I got to do this. And then as that's doing what it needs to do, I'll go do this. And again, it's that juggle of all this different stuff. And then eventually it all kind of comes together and then you're ready to go, so.
Very cool. Now, let me ask you this, because I know I've got a couple of guys out here who are interested. They've already shown some interest in it. Some of your books that are available, where can they find those now? Where are they available to get?
Well, I have a website, jayfotos.com. And I think I have a couple things on there that's available. I think you can get Rising Rebels, the collected version on there. There might be a couple other things on there. And then usually like when I get comps and stuff from like after I do a book or, Lock and Key or whatever like that, they send me comp issues and I usually throw them up on eBay. So, and then they're usually gone in a second. So usually if you follow me on my Facebook page or Instagram, I usually post like, hey, I got some, Lock and Key whatevers, and I threw a couple issues on on the Bay if you're interested, and then sell them that way. So I guess, follow me. So, because that stuff comes in and out. It's not like I have like these I have multiple copies of, so I'm able to sell through and keep them going. You know what I mean? But then like when I get my comps and stuff from IDW, I only have a couple or a handful of them. Like, hey, I got a handful. Put them up on eBay. Here you go. So I would suggest follow me on Facebook or Instagram. It's Jay Fotos Studios, and then follow me there because I'm usually pretty good. I'm posting something, if not every other day, every day. So try to stay on top of that. So
very cool. We've gone over a lot of information on here. The last thing that I want to kind of know is we've kind of talked about some of the future projects you've got going on. What kind of future are you looking for Jay Photo Studios? I mean, I know you're wanting to go with the live action or animation or whatever you're wanting to go with on that end, but is there something else that you're wanting to go into besides the regular comics? Is there another spinoff that you're looking at or anything like that? You don't have to give details, of course, but
I thought of something today for an idea. I don't want to bring it up, but because usually I have, like, when I was doing Rising Rebels, I had Gorgon in my head, and I'm like, okay, after Rising Rebels, I'm doing Gorgon. Gorgon, I think, is going to be an ongoing project, and I think there's going to be a lot of focus in that, and with the stuff that's going on with 68 and all the projects I got going on with IDW. And all these other I also work on these big. We didn't talk too much about these, but I also work on these big box games. These big meaty, things of brick. But I work a lot with IDW games on these big box games and puzzles and all that kind of stuff. There we go. Doing puzzles and all these little fun little projects that they have me working on with IDW games. So again, it's like one of those things that I'm mixing up, doing different medium. So they keep me busy, so I can't complain. I just did another Batman game. I think I'm going to be working on my mind's going a blank right now. An Avatar game. So and then I worked on with Alan Robert these tarot cards. We did a tarot card set. So here are some of those out of the set. These are going to be released soon. So that was another Kickstarter. So I'm always kind of, and again, working with Robert Kurtzman on, designing monsters for movies. And, there's always fun little stuff that kind of pops up here and there, along the way while you're working on these other projects, so there's always something like, oh, cool. Yeah, I could do that. I could do, and kind of do an album cover or, whatever. So there's always like little projects that pop up as you're working on these kind of bigger, more, grand scale, multi-month, projects, so, so excuse me, it keeps me on my toes, and it's fun. Keeps it fresh. And, again, we're artists that we're sitting, I'm in my office. I'm sitting in here by myself doing my thing. And, you got to kind of keep it fresh and exciting, because then you can get bored pretty quickly. So I'm luckily, and I'm thankful that I get to work and do fun stuff that I truly love. And it's a blessing that, yeah, I'll get an email or a phone call like, hey, you want to do that? I'm like, what? Yeah. Yeah, I want to do that. Or yeah, that is an opportunity to do this and do that. And yeah, oh my God, that's so cool. So I'm lucky in that aspect that stuff kind of like keeps coming at me. So I must be doing something right. So
absolutely. I mean, I've told people time and time again, there's a difference between fans and followers, and you definitely have a follower in me because not only will I go ahead and back your stuff, but I let everybody else know what's going on with it too, because I'm coming into this. I am very biased in this interview. I try to be as unbiased as possible, but I'm very biased because I really enjoy your work and I'm looking forward to, everything else that's coming out. And we had kind of discussed in the green room that I have a lot more of your work than I thought I did, especially in Lock and Key, because I have a lot of your covers and things that are in there too, which surprised me that I had as much as I do. But it's something that it definitely has a look that gets your attention. And then the storylines that you have that are available in your works you got going right now with Rising Rebels, and I'm sure with Gorgon, they get a hold of you and they do not let you go. So if you haven't gotten into that yet, I highly recommend go to his website, get Rising Rebels. Do you have 1 through 4 available, or do you know?
Yeah, I think I do. I have like I offer because there's I did alternate covers for issues 1 and 2, so
Okay.
there's actually 6 different out of the 4. There's 2 alternate covers, so there's 6 different floppies if you wanted to
Right.
get. I think I do offer a set of all 6 that you can get. So there's that, and then you can get the trade. You know, I kind of recommend to get the trade because it does have the bonus story with it,
Right.
called Nox's Revenge. So it kind of and it's kind of funny if anybody has read it, how we lead into it. It's kind of funny that because Jeff, Mark, and I actually show up in the story, and then we're talking about making Rising Rebels a movie, and then we actually talk about like, hey, well, I got a great idea for a sequel, and then boom, we go into Nox's Revenge, which would be the sequel, and it's kind of a short and sweet, gory, fun little story that like when I based the whole story off just there's one thing that happens in the story that I'm like, that's what started it. I mean, you know how like we like, well, when people start an idea for a story, oh, they're sitting in a park and they're, eating a sandwich and then this happens. You know what I mean? I'm like, and I'll ruin the surprise for you because
Right.
it's so backwards about how I think. But I'm like, okay, sequel. If I'm going to do a sequel to Rising Rebels, how would I do it? And I go, well, I know at some point, if anybody's seen Colonel Knox, he has these like tentacles, or he can like kind of stretches and like pull gook and stuff, and kind of use it as an appendage or something like that. So I'm like, well, I know I want to have an appendage wrap around a guy's leg, go up his butt, go through his body, come through his mouth, grab his whole head, then pull his head down through his body and rip it out through his asshole. And that's how I want this. That's how my story process begins. I'm like, that happens in the story. All right, let's build something around that. So
Yeah.
that's how I think, when it comes to, and then luckily I have Mark Kidwell, God bless him, that he can kind of go, yeah, that's fucking awesome, but let's think of some story, kind of thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, we'll figure that out. But this thing has to happen, that this guy's head has to get pulled out of his ass. That has to happen regardless, So within the 10 pages that we add, that has to happen, and then we'll figure out the rest. So that's how my head works, and then that's how usually our conversation with Mark, when Mark and I start talking about stories and whatever, I'm like, well, this happens, and this happens. And then he goes, all right, cool. Well, we can do this, and then like, yeah, I like that idea. Well, then we can do it. Then we kind of brainstorm and go back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of makes it all come together and make sense, in a way. I'm that guy that is like the kid in the candy store, right? And then I'm running and just grabbing bags of shit and going, and this happens, and this, and then this and this, and then Mark's like, all right, yeah. And then that can happen. And, and then we kind of go back and forth, and then he kind of puts it all together and makes it into a working story, in that aspect. And then he's just incredible about, that's how, we click that way, and then he makes fun of me because like, I'll just call him up and I go, I got this idea. And I'll just say, yeah, like what I just told you. Yeah, this guy gets his head pulled through his ass, and then he'll laugh and he'll go, okay, well, what else? And I'm like, I don't know, figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'm not worried about it, but that's got to happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, we laugh about it because it's just because I guess my way of thinking immediately goes to that kind of stuff first, and then I kind of build the story. I think with Rising Rebels, I mean, when we were developing the story, I knew there were things that were happening, and I wrote like a scenes for each issue, or each issue I did a breakdown. This happens in this issue, and this issue, and then I gave it to Mark, and then we talk about it, and he adds his spin on it, and he adds his ideas, and they're usually way better than mine, and in most cases that he adds on top of what I was thinking, and just makes it better, and then he's able to whip out a script, and something that, like, when I teach my kids about comic book writing and scripting and all that kind of stuff, that, like, when I write, I tend to, like, overthink everything, and I tend to like, when I write something, I know that I'm going to go back to it and change it and edit it and do it, whatever. Mark is kind of the opposite. He just, when he writes it, he spills it all out and he's done. And then it's either like, yeah, this is it, and then I'm not going to change it, and and luckily every time he does that, after him and I talk about stuff or collaborate or whatever, it's exactly what we, if not better than what we were talking about, and whatever, that I'm like, yeah, dude, I ain't gonna change nothing. This is fantastic. You know what I mean? I think every once in a while I might edit something as we're going, like with the art, or like, hey, I want to like, because when I'm working with Jeff, him and I are pretty hands on, and he's doing layouts, and then I'll get the layouts, and I'm like, well, what about this? And I'll move stuff around and do this, that, and he goes, yeah, that's cool. And then we'll do that, and stuff will change that way, and then there's like maybe some light editing on any of the script, but none of the story really changes, when we're doing stories and stuff like that. Usually when Mark writes it, he nails it, and I'm like, that's it. I've done, and then we just start going doing the art. So
very cool. And it works because, I mean, like I said, it grabs you and it doesn't let go. So, I mean,
yeah,
if you haven't gotten his work, look into it. Definitely get Rising Rebels. Don't miss out on that one.
It's fun. It's that over the top. I mean, I don't take it seriously. This isn't my Citizen Kane.
Right.
This isn't my, like, hey, Jay, if you could pick one book out or whatever, my pinnacle, it's just a fun story that I always wanted to do. And then that's what it is, and I know we had fun doing it. And, if something ever comes out of it, like a movie or TV, whatever, fantastic. It'll be fun to do it. I can imagine, when working with Robert Kurtzman with all the special. And if anybody doesn't know Robert Kurtzman, check your, if you're an Evil Dead fan, that's him. One of the KBN FX guys. He was the original guy, and he worked on all that stuff. So can you imagine, like, hey, Robert, let's do Rising Rebels? How much fun he would have with that, with all the animated ghouls and stuff that we got going on, and the horse, and all that crazy stuff.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean, that could be so much fun. I mean, the movie, I would be sleeping on the movie set, just in a tent, just looking at everything go, because I can imagine just how fun it would be to make it a movie, because it's that it's just that kind of it's that Evil Dead kind of fun, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So hopefully, one of these days, you never know, so, but I knew it's something I had to get off my chest. We did it, and then now we're like, okay, what are we doing next? So
very cool. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the future has for all this. We're looking forward to Gorgon coming out, absolutely. And I think you've got some new followers in the audience tonight as well, which is excellent, because I know I'll be getting some messages from a couple of them to get the exact site location and everything, so they can go ahead and grab some stuff as well, and I'll be ready for that.
Yeah.
But we've had a great time getting to know you a lot here tonight and everything. I have one request before I go ahead and let you go. Is, I know with you've got Gorgon coming out next year. I need to get you on as a guest next year while you've got Gorgon on, so we can help you kind of get exposure on that and talk about that more.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sure I got to take advantage of I got to spread the word, right? So I'm sure I'm going to be hitting everybody up, going like, hey, Gorgon's hitting. We got that whole month of promoting it.
There you go.
So I'm sure we'll be all over the place.
We will definitely lock something in for that. Absolutely.
That's the same thing when Rising Rebels. When I apologized at the beginning of when it all started. I said, listen, I'm going to be such a pain in the ass this next month. I'm going to be such a pain in the ass. You're going to get sick of me because I'm going to be on every day. That's the thing about these Kickstarters, is that I guess you gotta, you really gotta pimp yourself. You know what I mean? You really gotta, like, even though, you're kind of turning into the circus clown in a way, getting everybody's attention, but you kind of have to do that. You can't be like, hey, yeah, here's my thing. Hope you buy it. Thanks. See you in a month,
right.
Whatever. Like, no, you can't do that. You gotta, you gotta go out there and pitch it and sell it. And that's another thing I talk about with my students, because I was talking about this the other day with somebody about, all my students are, on their phones like this, clicking away on their phones, and they don't have, I guess, the new generation of kids, they don't have that interaction of the, when you go to conventions, and I'm telling you, like, yeah, well, when you go to a convention, that's a big part of being a comic book artist. And you got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to pitch your ideas and your story or whatever. So when they walk up, you want to sell this to them. You want to let the people know, this is my book, and you should read this, and why you should read it, and whatever. But a lot of these kids are like, I can't, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. So that's another thing I teach in my classes. I make my kids do that. I make my students stand up in front of the class and talk to everybody. And then, you can't hide behind your computer in here. You got to get up and talk to everybody in the class. And, we were talking about, just not to go steer off too much, but one big thing is that I have my students pitch ideas, but they're not pitching it to me. They're pitching it to everybody in the whole classroom. And then we all decide as a collective collaborative unit, going like, what would be the better idea? What would work better? And everybody kind of chimes in with their different opinions and whatnot, which makes it way more collaborative and more like, and it sparks other ideas. And that's how I am in real life. Even with Mark and Jeff and all these people that I work with, that we're constantly bouncing ideas and doing this and doing that. And here, you do that, and I'll do this, and you could do that, or whatever. And then, hey, what do you think of this idea? Oh, I really like that idea, but what about this? And then you go, yeah, that kind of thing. And it sparks even better stuff, right? So, and that's how I communicate with my students, that it's just like, when you're in your little cave, like where we are now, and you have an idea and you think it's the best idea, but then when you start talking to other people about it, they're like, yeah, that's cool, but what about if it did that? And you're like, yeah, that is a really good idea, So then, but then you find these other creative types that you're synced with. There's a lot of artists and creators I worked with over the years that everybody's in tune. You're kind of in tune with each other. They all kind of like think the same, or you have the same ideas or whatever, but everybody has their own kind of little thing that they put to it, and Mark, Jeff, Nat Jones I've worked with for 100 years, a bunch of different guys that I've worked with. We have that same vision or ideas, and then we kind of add to it. We kind of bring our own stuff to it, but we all have a collective thing. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm kind of going off.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. No, it definitely. It makes
it so much more fun. It just makes it way, way, way more fun, because we're these guys stuck in our caves all by ourselves all day, and an opportunity to kind of get up and talk to other people and bounce ideas off, and working with art, we're working with Jeff or any other, Gabe, and all these other different artists that were bouncing art. We're switching art back and forth with each other constantly. Like Gabe works on it, gives it to me, then I work on it, then he goes, oh, this is cool, and we all just kind of, everybody throws, it's like a big gumbo, right? And then everybody adds an ingredient that makes it better, and it just makes it more fun, because you can get burned out really quickly, so, but if you're working with other like-minded artists or creators, it just makes it more fresh and fun, and keeps you going.
Absolutely. Well, Jay, it has been a great time having you on here, getting to know you better and getting to know all of the stuff that you got going on and you've been working on and all. If you'll give us one last shout out on where we can find you on that, we'd certainly appreciate that, so we can locate you on there and hopefully get some of your work as well, because I know I got some people over here ready to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, straight off the bat, you just got jayfotos.com. And then social media stuff, which kind of seems, the way to go. You got Facebook, which is Jay Photos Studios on Facebook, and the same thing with Instagram, Jay Photos Studios.
Very
And then there,
cool.
I'm usually updating, if not every day, every other day, or posting something goofy or something, So I'm always posting stuff. And then again, with anybody that wants to buy anything, I know there's a couple items that you can get off of my website. But then if you're on my, I want to say Facebook is way easier for me to like kind of. You can't really do it with Instagram with posting links and stuff to stuff you're selling, right? So usually with Facebook, that's my go-to. Like if I'm like, hey, I just got some lock and key books, I put them up on eBay. Here's a link, and then I'll do that. If anybody's looking for like any more stuff that's coming out currently, because like I said, I'll do that every time I get like some kind of comps or something. I'll throw a couple issues up on eBay and go, here you go, have at it, if you're interested. So
Absolutely. That is great. And we're going to follow you on there. I know you're going to have some more people following you after tonight as well. And yeah, it's been a great show. Been great having you on here, getting to know you a little bit.
yes, thank you.
I'm gonna drop you backstage. I'm gonna do my closing statement, and then I'll talk to you here just a moment if you want to hang out for just a moment.
Okay, cool.
And I'll see you back there. But thank you again for being here. And
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we've had a blast having you on here.
Yes, thank you very much. Love to everybody, and stay safe out there. Wash your hands, wear the mask, do whatever you got to do, and keep on rocking. Thank you.
Very cool. All right, let me put you backstage. All right. Hey, we had a great show here tonight. Jay Fotos was in here, got to know a lot more about not only his work, but about him as a creator as well, which was great. Learned a lot more than I thought I was going to as well, because I tried to do my research prior to, and this was a great show. I loved it. I hope everyone else did as well. Now, I always have a closing statement. Tonight's not going to be any different. I try to go ahead and base that closing statement on my guest in the interview. And I'm going to do the same thing for tonight. And it's basically what he was talking about with diversity, that you go in and you don't go ahead and, limit yourself to one particular way of doing things or one thing to do. You always want to go ahead and have something else to go ahead and work on. It doesn't mean you have to be the best at every single thing you touch. It just means you need to try some different things and kind of get out of that wheelhouse. There are different things, especially nowadays with limitations on going to cons and whatnot. In the creative industry, there's a lot more that we can do to kind of get our names out there. And internet is one of the big ways to do that. And there are different ways within the internet to do that as well. Crowdfunding is another big thing with that. There's different ways and different things you can do. Just remember, don't stick to just one thing and make it where you're just stuck in a particular corner and that's the only place people are going to see you. Corners get very dark and not many people visit them. So you want to be out there in the light. You want to be out there in the open where everybody can see you. So if you've got to go ahead and take on a few extra things for diversity and try some different things, try it. You never know what's going to happen. So that's what I've got to say about that. On my shows, I always say, and I'm going to finish it off with this, it takes one pebble. You throw it in a pond, you get a ripple. You get enough pebbles and rocks thrown in that pond, you get the waves of change. We're making the waves of change. Wait till next year. You're going to see some major waves of change. Thank you, everyone who's gotten me this far with this. We're just getting started. So until then, we got another show on Thursday night. Make sure you're there for that one. We're going to have some fun with that show. I'll get you more information about that tomorrow. So until then, wash your damn hands. Keep safe. Keep doing what you're doing. Be creative in what you do. And do your best at it. Catch you next time. Keep it into y'all.